Broadcasting live from California, get ready for an hour of pure, unapologetic conservative talk radio. Liberals beware, because this is the Wise Conservative Show.
Good afternoon, and welcome to this next episode of the Wise Conservative Show. Of course, I'm your host, Connor Wise. Now, I couldn't actually do a live episode today, so I put together this basically a best of the Wise Conservative episode for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I will be back live next week for you guys, so enjoy. And so what we're seeing, though, is a very large portion of millennials are actually turning to this for their news. 40% is not small. 40% is a very large percentage, and so these are millennials who don't really want to take the time to become truly informed, but they're going to believe everything that they read on Facebook. These are the millennials who do need those safe spaces, because this is those who are, they're generally socialist if they don't want to take the time to research information. We see that these are the millennials that they will see a BuzzFeed article or BuzzFeed video, and suddenly they believe every single word in it, and they think that they are 100% unbiased. They'll see Now This or some other liberal video or news article, and they will believe every word of it, because they don't actually do any research. What they do is they just see it in their feed, and oh, that's gotta be true. It's very shameful that so many millennials are just, they don't do anything. They're so lazy. They're so lazy when it comes to researching information. Democracy is a system that thrives when people are informed. But my fellow millennials are throwing that out the door. They're throwing that into the trash because they're so lazy that they can't look up any information when it comes to their own nation. And it's a scary thought that these are the people that are going to be leading our nation in the near future. These people who get their information from Facebook. The people who believe BuzzFeed. And that's very sad, folks. It's sad, the fact that they're so lazy to actually care about their own nation, that they believe that Facebook is a reputable source. Alright, so this new article came out in the New York Times. And it's a disgrace, honestly, for the media even to be putting out stories this bad. But just in time for Halloween, this newspaper, the New York Times, put out a new article about a 7-year-old's nightmare where a zombie Donald Trump appeared in it. Now, this zombie Donald Trump was going from house to house, evicting Muslims and throwing them in jail. Alright, so right there, I can already tell that this is not a true dream that a 7-year-old had. But it gets worse. The dream was described to the paper by a 7-year-old Muslim girl living in New York City's, quote, whitest borough, Staten Island. She reportedly had the nightmare after watching the second presidential debate with her family when Trump called for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. Which, by the way, he did not say during the second presidential debate. He said that months ago. She reportedly told her father about her vision of the zombie Donald, and he reassured her, "Don't worry, he's just talk." The article was titled, "I had a scary dream about Donald Trump. Muslim parents face a tense election." Alright, this is the most BS story anyone could ever come up with. There is no 7-year-old in the world that is going to have a dream about a zombie Donald Trump. Furthermore, there's not a 7-year-old in the world that is going to dream about said zombie Donald Trump going door to door, evicting Muslims. There is no 7-year-old in the world that is going to remember Donald Trump talking about his immigration plan months ago and then having a dream about it after the second presidential debate. This is once again the media being so biased and helping Hillary Clinton out in her campaign because she's such an unelectable person that the entire media, besides maybe Fox News, has to help her win this election. And so they have this horribly made up story, because it's obviously made up. And then after the story about the dream that the 7-year-old allegedly had, it then goes on to discuss the challenges that Muslim parents have when discussing Trump's rhetoric with their children. Because I'm sure that's such a hard discussion to have. And it's one that every family has with their children. Kids, let me sit you down. We need to talk about Donald Trump's rhetoric. Honestly, if you're going to make up a story to try to help Hillary Clinton win this election, do something that's actually believable. I mean, this is just as bad as when Hillary Clinton, she obviously planned this beforehand, about a month ago. She was walking down the street, and this little kid ran past her security and gave her a hug. Because that wasn't staged either, obviously. Because the Secret Service lets little children just run past them all the time. Hillary Clinton has to stage so many different things to try to get her to be likable, or try to get Donald Trump to appear like this monster. And so they have to use a quotation from Donald Trump at the very beginning of the primaries. That's a year ago, folks. They have to use this quotation from a year ago, basically, to even try to get this very made-up story to be semi-believable. And it's not even semi-believable, folks. And I don't know, it's very deceiving, and it's sad that our media has gone down to this level. This is no longer fair and balanced media informing the public, but rather a campaign extension of the Clinton camp, of the DNC. And we spoke loud and clear on November 8th. We spoke loud and clear and proved that we don't like the establishment, that we don't want the establishment to continue to do stuff like this, but instead, we want outsiders. We want people who are actually one of us, people who can connect to the American people, people who want to limit government, lower regulations, lower taxes, people who are truly for conservative values, not establishment rhinos who just do whatever keeps them in power. Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. I'm still so surprised that Trump actually won this election, still so excited about it. But as I said before, there actually are some consequences that are happening right now. Across the entire nation and about 7 major U.S. cities, ranging from Oakland here in California to Chicago, there are a number of protests and riots going on because of the election results. Now, I already knew that something was going to happen if Trump did win the presidency, because in our country we have become, it's like they're so intolerant of what people actually choose to happen that now they're going to riot and protest what the American people decided. So now these people, they're going and they're burning cars, they're burning American flags, they're chanting many vulgar sayings, including F Donald Trump, and they're also chanting "Not my president." And of course these are all in very liberal cities such as Philadelphia. All of these cities that they're actually doing this in are very liberal,
on college campuses across the entire nation, there have been many college students outraged at this. Leave it to my fellow millennials to be outraged at what democracy has chosen. But that was expected. These people have been raised in a society where if they don't get their way, they throw a fit and they end up getting their way anyway. They get a trophy just for participating. That's the mindset that they have continually been implemented within their lives. And so now that they didn't win this presidential election, they're not going to take what democracy decided. Instead, they're going to loot, riot, and burn their own city because that's going to make a difference. It did a whole lot of good when Black Lives Matters burned down Ferguson. They just really want to, I don't know, because they're not going to get their way. We're not going to just suddenly put Hillary Clinton into the presidency because a couple of 20-year-olds demanded it. And this is the vocal minority within the country. This is the same vocal minority that made it seem like Donald Trump had no chance in this election. It's the same vocal minority that made it so that so many Trump supporters actually were afraid to say that they were Trump supporters in the first place. These people brought upon themselves this huge surprise of Donald Trump winning because they were so hostile to anyone who was a Trump supporter, even when they don't actually know what Trump stands for or any of his policy stances. They just go on what MSNBC said or what BuzzFeed said. And so they jump down the throat of any Trump supporter or anyone who they thought was a Trump supporter, sometimes assaulting them. And that made it so that millions of Americans across the country were afraid to actually say they were Donald Trump supporters. If they hadn't been so hostile towards Trump supporters, then it wouldn't be as much of a surprise. Then it would have been, oh, yep, Donald Trump has more supporters right now. He's actually leading in the polls. He could actually win this. So they literally brought this entire surprise upon themselves. But hey, this is the same group that constantly complains about everything. My fellow millennials. So they're not going to accept this election. Even though Donald Trump has, honestly, he has been less divisive in his rhetoric than Hillary Clinton herself. Because Hillary Clinton had all of these comments. We all remember the basket of deplorables comment. And all of the email leaks, there have been some sort of email that's been calling out a certain group of Americans. They've insulted Latino voters. Hillary Clinton has called young black men super predators. And so on and so forth. The insults just line up with the Clinton campaign, what they had said. But according to these millennials, and I'm sure there's people who aren't millennials in this protest as well, these rabid liberals, it was Donald Trump that was being divisive and bigoted in his rhetoric. But honestly, I can't think of an actual time, an actual quotation, not an edited quotation like CNN uses, but an actual quotation from Donald Trump where he has actually been divisive in his rhetoric. I can't think of one. I can see where it's borderline on it a couple times, but not when it's outright calling someone names or insulting an entire group of people. Donald Trump never insulted the LGBT community, which so many liberals seem to think he did. Donald Trump did not, in fact, call all Mexicans rapists and murderers. He only said that there are illegal immigrants coming across the border who turn out to be rapists and murderers. He never said that all Muslims are bad people, which so many liberals seem to think he did. He only said that we need to have a better vetting system for the Syrian refugees. So all of these different statements that the left thinks Donald Trump made, and the whole reason why they're actually having these protests and riots, is because they think Donald Trump said these things. But again, Donald Trump has never uttered any of those words that they think he has. Donald Trump has not done nearly half what Hillary Clinton has done in terms of being divisive. I wouldn't even say he was close to half. But my fellow millennials hate to do research. They hate to look up facts and statistics, as I say just about every week on this show. Because week after week after week, a new story comes up about how my fellow millennials are arguing over something that has been the norm within our country for decades. Our country has prided itself on this great operation of constitutionally transferring power from one president to the other, peacefully, might I add. We have prided ourselves on that privilege, a privilege that so many countries within the world don't get to have. For some countries, it's a miracle that we have that privilege. But because these college students don't like the way that the election turned out, they're going to completely ruin the way that we have transferred authority in this country for 200 years. Because they didn't get the exact outcome that they wanted. Because everything didn't go their way. You know, I really hope they learn from this election. I really hope that they learn that not everything in life is going to go exactly as they want it. There's going to be obstacles in life. They're going to have to overcome some things. But there were people literally crying because Hillary Clinton lost the election. They showed it on all of the news agencies at the Hillary Clinton headquarters. People were crying because Donald Trump was winning. There were people making death threats to Donald Trump supporters on social media because, quote, Donald Trump is a racist. And that's another thing. Then they went on to social media, these Hillary Clinton supporters. And while calling Donald Trump a racist, they called out all white Americans for voting Donald Trump, and they said that all white Americans who voted Trump are evil. So calling out an entire race of people and calling them evil. But that's not racist because they can't be racist. It's this hypocritical viewpoint that it seems like most liberals have when it comes to politics. They're very hypocritical in many of their arguments and stances. I had many people, I wore a Trump hat today and yesterday to show my support for Donald Trump. And I had many people yell F Donald Trump at me or just, throw insults at me because I was a Donald Trump supporter. It's this, and honestly, this goes all the way back to the very beginning of this episode where I started talking about the polarized nation that we're in, this divided nation. And I don't think that it is Trump supporters or Trump himself or conservatives really in general that are contributing much to this polarity within our country. It's these, and I'm not saying it's all of the left. There's a lot of the left who they graciously accepted the results of this election. They accepted that the American people wanted Donald Trump. So I'm not saying this is all liberals. I know many liberals who were not like this after the election. But there is the vocal minority once again who cannot seem to accept it, who cannot seem to just hold themselves back when they see a Trump supporter. And just as I said before, they brought all of this upon themselves. But sticking along the lines of butthurt millennials, after the election results came in a Yale professor made the midterm optional for students distraught over the Trump win. Liberal students across the nation, this isn't just at Yale, but across the nation, liberal students have been complaining constantly about this fair and square victory in the presidential election. And, well, one professor at Yale, for an Econ 115 class, he wrote a letter out just before the midterm, and he wrote this. Dear Econ 115 students, I am getting many heartfelt notes from students who are in shock over the election returns. Although as I write this, the election has not been called. The ones I find most upsetting are those who fear, rightly or wrongly, for their own families. These students are requesting that the exam be postponed. On the other hand, I am sure that many students have sacrificed to prepare for the test. Further, it is not easy to reschedule exam rooms at this late date. Finally, postponing the exam would throw off the rest of the schedule as well. Therefore, I am making the exam optional. I will calculate each student's grade both with and without the exam, placing all of the exam 2's weight on the final exam when exam 2 is omitted. I will then take for each student the maximum of the 2 final grades with and without the exam. Those maximum scores will then be used for the final curve. So because they didn't like the results of this election, they get out of their responsibilities. Great. Just adding to that fire beneath these lazy millennials. Just adding to it. They are so distraught over a Trump victory that they can't take their midterm. That is BS. Most people had to go to work today. You can't just call in and say that you can't go to work because you're distraught over a Trump victory. That's not how the real world works, folks. But in these safe spaces that have been implemented across the country, that's how it works now. If you don't like something, it's not going to happen. Because why put yourself in a situation where you're not completely comfortable? Why do that? That never happens in the real world. And again, these students, and I've actually seen a lot of people saying this. These people are claiming that now their families are in danger because Donald Trump is the president-elect. Their families are in danger. You know, last time I checked, Donald Trump hasn't made any comments threatening the lives of American citizens. Last time I checked, Donald Trump isn't the one who actually wants to call out certain groups of Americans. No, that's Hillary Clinton. The only way your family could possibly be hurt by a Donald Trump presidency is if someone in your family is here illegally. That's really the only possible way that this is going to have an outcome on your family. If your family member is here illegally, that is how your family is going to get hurt. He's not going after every single Mexican and deporting them back to Mexico, many of whom have never even put a foot in Mexico. He's not going to do that. We are a diverse nation. We have many different ethnic groups. And Donald Trump understands that, and the right understands that. We're not going to go door to door, and if we see your skin color is a certain color, we're going to kick you out of our nation. And I've actually seen a liberal claiming that Donald Trump has said that. We're not going to set up an SS unit to go house to house to do that. That is complete fabricated lies that these people are living off of. These lies that they have allowed to grow and fester and become such a big lie that now all of the left just about believes it. They have lied so much that they believe their own lies. And that is a dangerous thing to do. instead of actually knowing what Donald Trump said and researching about their own candidate, now they're just lying about something and believing the lies. And that actually reminds me. So on Tuesday, yesterday, I was discussing with a liberal friend of mine about why he could support someone who contributed to the rigging of a primary election, which everyone knows through WikiLeaks that Hillary Clinton and the DNC did in fact rig the primary. And he sat there and he's like, they didn't rig the primary. How did they rig the primary? There's no proof of that. They didn't actually look at any of these facts or statistics being leaked to the public. And that is worrying. It's worrying that they believed CNN, which also has been proven to be working with the left. They just believe what CNN says, that it doesn't matter because, quote, Russia leaked it. And so they don't do research on what actually happened. And that is very worrying, folks. It's worrying that they don't care about facts or statistics anymore, but they just care about morality issues, which, quite honestly, all of the liberal arguments that they use nowadays are just moral arguments of, oh, we can't deport any illegals because what if one family is broken up? I've heard that argument before. If it can save just one child, then we should ban all guns. Heard that before too, folks. If it can save just one child. Then we have Hillary Clinton at the third debate saying that toddlers are killing people quite frequently and using that as an argument, which, by the way, is not true. Toddlers do not go out and mass murder groups of people. So that's what I have concluded, though. I've concluded that the left primarily uses these arguments of morality rather than facts, and the right, we tend to use more factually based arguments, more statistic-based arguments. Because we actually look at past examples, and we see, oh, you know what, that didn't work. We have to change it. And so we do more research into what has worked in other places around the world, and we implement those policies that have actually worked, or we try to. And so that is what the right, we do. We actually do research, and that is why in this election we actually won, because more of the independents this election cycle, and even some Democrats, those working class Democrats, they did research on issues such as trade. And they realized that Hillary Clinton wasn't going to help them out there, and so they voted Donald Trump. If this truly was a Muslim ban, like the left says, then countries like Indonesia, the most Muslim populated country in the world, would be banned. They're not on the list, however. Countries such as India, it has a very large Muslim population. It would be on the list, but it's not. These countries that aren't connected to terrorism but have Muslims are not banned. It is merely a coincidence that these countries, well, a little more than coincidence because of Islamic terror, but it's not the reason why these countries were selected. Muslims were not the reason why. And so every time the left and the liberal media continues to call this a Muslim ban, they are actively lying and indoctrinating the American people. He said that if you are here illegally, you have a chance of being deported. And that's how it ought to be. That's not how it was for quite a lot of years. And that's how our country needs to get back to. That's what it needs to get back to. And that's exactly what the Trump administration has said they are going to do. I don't see why the left finds it surprising that suddenly the Trump administration is enforcing immigration laws. And what's even worse is they are trying to defend this person that not only came here illegally, but also was convicted of theft. He's a criminal on 2 counts here. He's not a shining angel that they're trying to support here. They don't even have anyone that's a good image that they're backing in this case. They're backing someone who is a thief, someone who came here illegally, someone who doesn't have any regards for our country's laws. This is just one of many examples of people who come here illegally and then they commit more crimes once they even get here. They don't have any regards for our laws because they are not U.S. citizens. Because they're not members of our society. But they were able to get away with stuff like this under the Obama administration. Under the Obama administration, people were able to come here illegally, stay for many years, and never have to worry about being deported, even when they commit other crimes. Under the Obama administration, we didn't enforce these laws. In fact, he created many different plans to try to protect these people, trying to save these people from being punished for breaking the law. And now suddenly the left is surprised when we're actually trying to enforce those laws. We're trying to actually get these people who are here illegally out of our nation. And people like Nancy Pelosi, all of those different leadership positions within the Democratic Party, you're going to see them time after time jumping on board to cases like this, trying to say that this is, well, in her own words, cruel, trying to, say shame on us. That's something that they love to do. We've seen time after time after time when the Democrats just say shame on you. They start chanting shame, trying to basically pressure people into being accepted by doing the liberal logic way. They're saying that if you don't think the same as them, then shame on you. Because they believe that everyone should be molded to their beliefs, that everyone should agree with them no matter what. They agree that we shouldn't have a border. They think that we shouldn't enforce our laws, unless it comes to gun control. They are so hypocritical in many different areas, and this is just one of them. Well, now the U.S. and the European terror forecast for 2017, quote, looks alarming. Now, this is in part because of increased pressure on ISIS and other terror groups on their home turf, according to a monthly assessment by House lawmakers. The House Homeland Security Committee's February Terror Threat Snapshot report cited 2 homegrown terror attacks in January, and officials predicted efforts to crush foreign terror groups. While awesome and good for our actual foreign policy, this could actually spur more attacks on American soil. At this rate, the forecast for 2017 looks alarming, the report says, citing an unprecedented spike in the homegrown terror threat, primarily driven by the rise of ISIS. Officials predicted necessary efforts to crush foreign terror groups could actually spur more attacks on Western soil. Coming attacks in the U.S. and Europe could be carried out by so-called lone wolves that we've seen time after time, and of course, as well as homegrown terrorists who return from fighting in places such as Iraq, Syria, and Somalia. House Homeland Security Committee Chairman Michael McCaul, a Republican from Texas, said this: I am very encouraged that the Trump administration is preparing to put greater pressure on jihadists and their safe havens throughout the world. But as they do, we can expect to see militants returning to the West to build new networks and to plot more deadly operations. The report compiled by the committee's Republican majority staff is based on information gleaned from media reports, publicly available government data, and documents and non-governmental assessments. Since the beginning of 2016, there have been plots or attacks by 39 homegrown jihadists across 19 states, the states of Arizona, California, Colorado, Florida, Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, Minnesota, Michigan, Missouri, North Carolina, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, Virginia, Washington, and Wisconsin. All 19 of those states have had homegrown jihadists having plots or attacks actually occur. Now, 2 instances occurred on American soil just last month. The attack at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport, carried out in the first week of 2017 by Esteban Santiago, He was reportedly radicalized by ISIS videos. And, of course, the January 31st murder of a Denver Regional Transportation District contract security officer. This was by a suspect carrying jihadist material in his backpack. The report also cites numerous incidents in Europe, the Middle East, and, of course, in Africa. Despite President Trump's vow to take a hard line against radical Islamic terrorism, the West and the U.S. in general could actually have a more deadly future in terms of terror. Unfortunately, over the past 8 years of the Obama administration, the ideological countermeasures were removed, and therefore, the level of radicalization peaked to the levels acknowledged in this report. This is from a Fox News contributor, Walid Fares, who advised President Trump on foreign policy throughout the campaign. He continued, "More jihadis mean more potential attacks. This is what we are facing now." Now, of course, there are definitely more jihadists across the world than there was ever expected at the beginning of President Obama's presidency. The past 8 years, terrorism within the Middle East and across the entire world has thrived, has prospered, has increased exponentially. ISIS is within 32 countries across the entire globe. And, of course, they are going to continue to commit jihad against America and against our allies within Europe, and of course against our allies in the Middle East. ISIS is committed into taking action against the free world, and of course our actions against them are going to cause more attacks in America and in Europe, but we're also going to be taking care of ISIS, getting rid of them, so it won't continue for as long. This is something that we should have taken care of back when ISIS was a JV team, like Obama referenced back in 2012 or in 2013. We should have taken care of ISIS back then. But now that President Obama, or former President Obama, allowed them to thrive and to prosper, we have to take desperate measures. We have to finally take care of this Islamic jihadism that is going on across the entire globe. Now, of course, just one of many measures that Donald Trump is going to be implementing, and that he already has implemented, in tightening Homeland Security to actually combat this rise in jihadism within the U.S., is that travel ban that we spoke of earlier and that I spoke of last week. That was one of his main ideas, to actually keep America safe from this terrorism. Because as we all know, they can easily come in through the refugee programs, as was cited in that report that we've previously discussed. Now, according to this report, although ISIS faces continued counterterrorism pressure in their key safe havens, the group's external operations plotting appears undiminished. Now, the report also noted counterterrorism efforts, including the elimination of key ISIS figure Abu Anas al-Iraqi, who is a member of ISIS and Chief Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi's inner circle. He was killed back in January on the 8th in a raid in Syria. And this was one of the few actual key members within ISIS that was killed during Obama's presidency. But even with these counterterrorism efforts, there's really not going to be a halt in this terrorism within the U.S. for quite a while, not until at least we take care of ISIS to a certain extent. But that is exactly what we have to do. There's no other choice. And if the left allows this measures that Donald Trump wants to put in place, such as the travel ban, if they allow that to continue, then our country will be safe from these attacks. But if the left continues to throw these baby fits, which seems to be happening on everything that Donald Trump does, if they continue to throw these baby fits, then we could potentially have a very dangerous year ahead of us.
I hope you guys enjoyed this special Best of the Wise Conservative Show episode. Once again, I will be back live next week. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, you can find me on youthrevolt.org. Go ahead and search Youth Revolt up on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram at @the_wise_conservative. Spreaker.com/The Wise Conservative Show. As always, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, God bless.